because I'd look wicked young.
Do you think everybody can see what
Yes.
is on
I know I usually start every single... Get closer.
Oh,
You don't have to...
okay.
I know I usually start every single Facebook Live with a discussion of my hair.
Yes, you do.
Which is so
looks
funny
really good
because
tonight.
it's like I just got a haircut. I went back to Supercuts.
Good. They did a better job this time.
And I said...
All right, wait, I've got to share it, so go ahead and talk.
Okay. And so I said 2 things I don't want out of it. Natalie's here. 2 things I don't want. I don't want to look like a Lego, and I don't want to look like my dad.
I don't look like a Lego?
Yeah, I always think I look
What?
like a Lego when I get my hair done.
A Lego.
Because it goes to the sides.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a Lego.
Oh, that's cute.
No,
I'm
it's
never going
not.
to see you the same ever.
I don't want to be a Lego, and I don't want to be my dad.
Okay.
Haircut.
No dad.
No dad
Lego.
haircut.
Okay.
And she's like, how come? And she's like, and I'm like, well, first of all, my dad has had the same haircut since like 19. Like he got back from Vietnam, chose a hairstyle, and it's stuck
And then
with
just
it.
stuck with it?
Right.
Okay. So what is the title of tonight's show?
Tonight,
Chris?
it's Tripping on Legends, Ghostly Synchronicity.
Ghostly synchronicity. And what does that mean, ghostly synchronicity?
Well, you kind of okay, for everyone, we got to introduce ourselves first. My name is Christopher Balzano.
Hi, I'm
Lego
Natalie
Christopher
Crist.
Balzano. And welcome to Tripping on Legends Live. And what's the name of the episode?
Ghostly synchronicity.
Synchronicity. Not ghostly sincerity, which
No.
it auto-corrected to ghostly sincerity, which next week's show is going to be ghostly sincerity.
How sincere are you?
Don't know how that's going to work out for us, but so I am wearing my Patriots jersey just to show, for at least one time, support for my team.
Just one time support?
Well, no, I
have
don't
no
really,
idea how big of a fan this guy is.
Right, and I don't make a show of it. And so I talked a little bit, and I was going to post about how horrible it was at my school, which, if you're following the news, has bigger fish to fry than my T-shirt, than my jersey. But it had I got attacked by like 3 people I work with that I didn't even know because I'm still the new guy there.
You use attacked, but he wasn't attacked. They just brought up the Super Bowl.
Right, in terms of
in a funny, joking way.
I didn't feel it was humorous or joking.
He is a big woman.
And I hit enough of I either gave up enough of a vibe or the person realized, because one of them kind of apologized to me in a little roundabout way yesterday.
That's probably because you huffed and puffed away.
I didn't. Yes, exactly. I did not engage. So Teddy Bruschi sporting it today as we talk about ghostly synchronicity. Now, if there was a connection to Teddy Bruschi in the episode, it would have made sense, but there's really not. So sorry about that. So
what is ghostly synchronicity?
Ghostly synchronicity is that idea that I'm sure has been said before, but I always attribute it to Matt Moniz from Spooky Southcoast, which is every step you take towards the paranormal takes 2 steps towards you.
Okay. Yeah. You've
so
explained that before.
Anyone who has been involved in the paranormal, anyone who has been starting to look at things, will start to see signs all over the place, and they'll start to experience things that make connections that they normally wouldn't make.
So we had an episode about this recently where we were talking about the different signs and do we make up these signs in order to connect things?
Right.
So when you're saying you take, this paranormal takes 2 steps towards you, are you really just taking one giant leap instead?
A leap of faith?
Essentially.
Well, I mean,
right?
That's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight.
Okay.
So we'd love to. We're doing this via laptop, so we can't let people in on the discussion, but we definitely can get comments from people on it.
Okay.
So that people can kind of tell us their own moments. We can maybe share some of them out of when the paranormal started to make a whole bunch of other things make sense, and it kind of crept up on you. And I'm gonna start by saying this was partly inspired by I watched Hellier.
And what is Hellier?
Hellier is it's a documentary. It's on, if you have Amazon Prime, you can get it on Amazon Prime. We actually put it in the links for the event itself for tonight's show. But it's also, I guess, on YouTube and Vimeo. because I was just listening to Spooky Southcoast 2 weeks ago episode on the way here, and they said that I don't think it had reached Prime at that point or something because they were promoting it on these other platforms.
Okay.
So Hellier is a documentary. It's a 5-part series, so it's about 5 hours long, which looks at this part of Kentucky, which they had originally, and it's Greg and Dana Newkirk are kind of the driving forces behind it.
Oh, okay.
They're a
and they have the traveling museum,
museum of the oddities and the
haunted objects, essentially, right?
Right. They do the Week in Weird, and they did
Gotcha.
Who Forted. If they're old school people, paying attention to this episode, the old Who Forted blog, and it's essentially they got approached by someone who is asking, yes, the Goblins movie. They got someone who is having these weird experiences with goblins, and ended up, it was kind of similar to the Kentucky Goblin case, years before. And so they went out and they essentially investigated this for like 5 episodes.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Because we've never really heard of goblins in any of the lore that we've experienced.
Okay.
Are goblins? Well, this is my question: is what constitutes a goblin?
Well, they pretty much the way that they were discussing it in the documentary was kind of like a Pukwudgie but hairless.
Okay.
So for people who are from Massachusetts, which a lot of our audience is, think not Jersey Devil, Dover Demon.
Okay, we've talked about that.
So, and you've seen pictures of that, and they actually use some of the pictures in that. And Pukwudgies was originally, in reference when I started the Pukwudgie work, was in reference to a book that said this is not something like the Dover Demon is not a Pukwudgie. I would argue that they are. So I would argue that they would fall into that.
That blanket terminology.
That umbrella blanket terminology, because in there, Newkirk, Greg Newkirk was talking about how he wanted to make his way to Michigan to look into this John Tenney experience in Michigan. I don't know. What does that mean? John Tenney's an investigator and researcher.
I think I've heard that name before.
So he's got this case that he had in Michigan. I want to go to the same exact place because I feel it's Pukwudgie. So,
I see.
You know what I'm saying? It might be just a circumstance of like people saying, I'm reading Shakespeare in class. A rose by any other name would still be a Pukwudgie.
That should have been the title of the show.
Right. No. Well, if we were talking about that, this is just kind of like So anyway, I watched it hesitantly, because years ago, and I'm talking like 10 years ago, maybe a little less, I had drama with Newkirks. In that,
who haven't you had drama with?
Shut up! I'm really I get along with most people, which is the weird thing. We had put out a Ghost Village for kids, and we were promoting. And I was doing a lot of I was trying to make lesson plans for this, and the Who Forted blog was kind of initially designed to attack all things paranormal.
Okay.
And someone trying to make a name for themselves, and kind of like a good grind my gears version. Dave is saying that John Tenney's also the best dressed paranormal guy going.
Really, Dave?
Yes. And
interesting.
And frequently, I believe, referred to as Tim Weisberg's spoon, because they like to hold each other. I don't know. Okay. I try not to think too much about it.
Moving on.
And so I guess I was a little hesitant over the years to engage in what the Newkirks were doing because of that.
Okay.
Because it was like a direct attack on what we had been doing. But the Newkirks are very popular with people that I like and respected by people I like. So I kind of felt like, all right, dude, you got to let go. Let it go, let it go.
Keep going. You're watching hesitantly.
I heard them.
You were watching hesitantly.
I heard them on Spooky Southcoast and went, this sounds amazing. As a matter of fact, I think I stopped at one point and messaged. I was driving home from here after a Spooky Live. Messaged Tim immediately about of course that was at 2:00 in the morning. So, so I watched it, and then I heard a really bad interview with them on Coast to Coast the next time I was coming back from your house, oddly enough.
That's funny.
So in the documentary, so to speed it up, in the documentary, some people online have not liked it.
Okay.
IMDb, reviews, and as well as people kind of posting online don't like it because they feel it was like, really, really, come on now. I mean, like, that you're producing that as evidence, or you're like making some kind of sense out of that. And I kind of felt that way in parts. I highly recommend watching it. Follow the links or do whatever you need to do. Watch it. Watch it if you're a paranormal fan. You can maybe fast forward through some of the slower parts if you're not into that. Because they do a lot of...
Well, what are they doing? They're just investigating some goblins?
Well,
what
right.
is it?
They essentially, there's this whole mystery behind who sent this email to invite them out there. And then they seem to be being stalked by some weird person who's writing in code. I don't want to give too much away.
Okay.
And so, right, like, it's kind of like, oh yeah, maybe we'll go look at that sometime, when we're there, because they were in Canada at the time. And it was like, and then they end up being there, and then someone sends all these movies. They go out and they're looking for what might be these goblins. And they end up doing everything that you and I should be doing. Episode 2 of Hellier should be pushed forward as, like, if you want to be a legend tripper, that's the guideline for it. Like, the way that they approached it, they went to the town. They were very much like, we'll talk about that, Colleen. She says some of the synchronicities didn't seem to make sense to me.
But some of them did.
Some of them did. They were very aggressive, but also very like, hey, what's going on? And one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. Like, I was thinking about that.
I was thinking about that do?
When we're at our best.
Oh, that's horrible.
No, I'm saying, like, sometimes we go to a place, and that's usually me that does that. It's like, okay, I'm done now. Like, I want to go home.
Well, when it's enough.
When's enough? I went out today to look at some of the places in Punta Gorda in front of our legend trip this weekend on that.
Right.
And Hellier was in the back of my mind, because I was like, I'm just going to start talking to people. Which
is totally outside your comfort zone.
It's outside of my comfort zone. You're the one who's actually brought that up. And then they do a lot of experiments, which I'm not hot on.
The only part...
and you watched maybe like 20 minutes of it before you fell asleep, in all honesty. You had just watched back-to-back Right Said Fred, what was it called?
Drop Dead Fred
and Percy Jackson.
Right, so with the kids.
Those are two exhausting movies. So when I put Hellier on to follow up on it, you didn't necessarily have the gusto, but you watched a little bit of it.
I did, and I didn't enjoy the experiment that they did. I thought it was very abnormal.
I don't know, why are they taping that shit on his eyes? So that wasn't as enjoyable to me, was the experiment parts. Like, I felt like, okay, you can just tell me like what happened, but they're important in that during those experiments, they were getting a lot of things that didn't make sense at the time, but then made sense later.
Okay, we do quite often. And so, one of the things, if people have watched it that we're talking about, and Colleen's are probably some of the better ones, is the 48 minutes is a really, and I can't give away what these are, I'm just going to throw some of them out. And people who have seen the documentary know what I'm talking about, and people who haven't, maybe it'll inspire them to watch it. But the 48 minutes in the can was a big one. And I think you were there for the can. I wasn't there for the can, but you explained the can, sort of. I really didn't understand it, but there was a can. That was important. I remember that.
Good cans, nice cans. But
don't give away any spoilers.
I'm not. And so it got me thinking, I don't want this to go off on this. It got me thinking about like how often, so I don't know what this is. We have strictly a review on the documentary. Okay. How often that happens to us. Right. And so as I'm watching it and as I'm reading some of the reviews, I'm like, you don't get it. If you're watching this as an audience member, if you're watching it, as just kind of like a person who's never investigated the paranormal, you don't know that moment. You don't know that moment.
So is it really for that narrower audience of just the paranormal?
I think you can watch it and not be part of the paranormal field.
Okay.
But that real deepness that like I said, some people were like, really? Seriously, a can? Like, really? When when those moments happen,
Right.
That's like, you go, oh my, your jaw drops.
Yeah, we've had plenty of those.
Connected. I know we've talked about some. Did we talk about? Cause I kind of remember us having an argument about Bennigan's. Did we have a discussion on the Heather Gately?
No, different fish.
Okay. No, it was you. I just don't know whether we had it on air, but during the infamous federal government Ouija board flap, if you will, when we were using Ouija board a lot, we got this. Everything seemed to be connected. Everything was, and I know I've talked about how.
Oh, the waitress.
Right.
Okay, now it's
right.
Yeah, I just didn't realize it was Bennigan's. For some reason, I was thinking Denny's.
Okay, you can't even compare because Bennigan's had the best Monte Cristo. And then I think can you share the bird story again? I know we've done it on a non-live episode.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely,
okay,
yeah. Well, why don't you finish your Heather Gately story first?
I think the audience, if you know it, the audience knows it. I knows what I'm thinking. Okay. We were doing all this thing, and the Ouija board, oddly enough, sent forth this name Heather Gately, and Jenna, who was with us at the time, knew who she was. And we're all like, I don't know Heather Gately. I don't know who that is. And then we went out to eat at Bennigan's, and her waitress said Heather. We're like, oh, Heather Gately, and she's like, yeah. How do you know me? I'm like, it was just one of those things where that Dave, I want to bring that. I'm writing that down.
EVP seems to do this quite a bit.
Connect. Okay, good. I'm writing that down. A, because I want that close above me. But B, because I want to talk about that afterwards.
Okay, so I remember the incident of the birds, but I don't remember what led up to it. What was that the sign for? Was that the Singing River?
It was a Singing River, which is weird because, remember, I was just talking about the Singing River, too.
You were.
So we had, you can feel free. I won't be insulted if you correct me on this story.
Okay.
So we were researching the Singing River, and we were kind of like, okay, we're gonna go down there, and if you watch those episodes, listen to those episodes, we did two, one with us, one with the kids, and we were just kind of in this place where we were kind of consumed in that research.
And it was mostly Native American folklore.
And it was mostly Native American folklore it was coming off of.
Right.
And so, independent of that, you were driving down the street.
Well, first.
Yes.
Okay,
so you remember now.
I do remember. All right. First, there was your dog with the bird incident.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that part.
Yeah.
My dog kept finding birds that were dead or babies that he then killed.
And
Horrible.
Would bring them.
Right. But also my grass had grown to the point that there were dead birds living in my grass.
It was very odd, and that hasn't happened. There was a lot of dead birds.
No, it happened. No,
right.
not at all.
And then we had another strange experience here with the birds. I don't remember what
there was. There was a cardinal.
There was a cardinal for sure.
For the first time ever you had seen a cardinal on this property.
Or not the first time ever, but whatever. Anyways, so the big incident was I was driving to work, and it's a 2-lane road, and I had a big white work truck in front of me, and I saw a bird fly into the windshield of the truck in front of me, and it was fast. It was just no stopping, no braking, no nothing, and so you expected there to be an explosion of feathers and some pretty gory sights. But as I went to pass the truck, who then was turning, there was nothing. It was gone. So it was pretty freaky.
So Natalie automatically...
What is living dead birds?
Yes, they were all insulting me for saying living dead birds. So I'm saying it's a bird paradox. So Natalie, being Natalie, automatically starts to research...
what's the meaning
of dead birds?
Because we both, within a week, this was in a week
right,
time
it was
frame.
A lot of dead birds coming into our lives. And as she was doing that, she found a novelist, and it was not deep in the results. It's not like she was on the 7th page of Google doing this. It was on the first page. It was one of the first.
Yeah.
When you typed in whatever you typed in, hit this woman who was writing fiction novels based around the Singing River legend in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my word, that's really weird. And then we're telling the story, and 5 minutes before we got on the air, I was like, Natalie, we never posted on the website anything about the Singing River, and we need to do that because there's not much information, and we can kind of corner that market.
Maybe it's pulling us back there. Because we never did.
More than you can possibly imagine based on my research for today, but we're not going to talk about that.
Why?
Boom, boom, boom.
Oh.
Because I did a lot of research today. Went all around Punta Gorda, these different locations. And we're going to save that for the episode where we talk about the legend trip. And I'll reveal some of the stuff.
You've got a lot to tell me, actually. Right?
I do have a lot to tell you.
Yeah.
So Natalie was preparing for the show. And I was like, this afternoon I had texted you about like this new concept that I was thinking of, which is it's kind of like the cursed county. We had talked about Ocala, we had talked about, its connection to the Bridgewater Triangle, things like that. And I started to notice a lot of references to DeSoto, both as, Hernando de Soto, but then also areas called DeSoto or things referred to DeSoto. And I started to get this idea of, is there something cursed about the DeSoto name? So most people probably don't know who that is.
Right. Most of the people that are our viewers anyway are not from this area.
Right. And I think that and especially me, right?
Right.
And I think that he's a minor explorer. Oh, that was a really weird look at this game. He's a minor explorer taught in school. As a matter of fact, people probably know Pizarro more, and he was originally part of Pizarro's crew.
Interesting.
Bad Boys for Life. But he was horrific. He was a nasty, nasty man from all intents and purposes. And so I was doing a little research on DeSoto as you were getting ready, and just some of like the horrible things he did. And one of the things that I found.
Well, hang on. Let's tell your lovely viewers who the hell DeSoto is, because they probably have no idea.
So DeSoto is. Sorry. Well, this is really just supposed to be like a pop, so I can get to the pop.
I know, but you got to give it a little bit.
So DeSoto was an explorer who kind of came up into Tampa, although Punta Gorda claims that it was Charlotte Harbor that he actually entered into and not Tampa.
Okay.
And then kind of basically like led an expedition of death and murder as he went and explored like all the way through Florida and then into Georgia.
Was he a pirate?
And then no, he was a conquistador. He was from the Spanish government, and he was. He's taught in history books. Like they show the little orange and green lines of like these people were English and these people were Spanish, and stuff like that. And so he's taught, but he really is he's the first European, they say, to see the Mississippi River, to document that. And he pretty much like destroyed every single thing that came into his path.
Wow.
Really kind of one of the worst, like we think of, and he was like I said, he was involved with Pizarro and like the destruction of the Incas and things like that. But he also kind of then split off, and Pizarro went this way and he went this way through Florida. And he...
So we're talking like
highly...
1500, 1400s, 1500s?
Right,
okay.
1400, yeah, like 1500s.
Okay.
Because he's really one of the first explorers, one of the first, people. And a lot of what we know of pre-colonization America, especially the South, it comes from DeSoto.
Okay.
Hernando de Soto.
Got it. Now continue.
Do you remember that we were reading that DeSoto killed his wife? Like led to the death of his wife? Remember the elephants? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was
part of the Singing River.
Right. Was it the Singing River?
No,
or was it?
No, it was Silver Springs.
It was Silver Springs.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Silver Springs. It was Ormond Beach. It was when we were doing the Ormond Beach research
that we found it.
That we found it.
Got it.
Yeah. And so we've now discovered this is part of the paranormal synchronicity. We've now discovered in our research, we've become croon obsessed.
Yes.
And we start seeing all of these things pop into it.
Yeah.
And being like, boom, 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 like popping up everywhere, and DeSoto popping up too. And we've now found 2 failed Fort DeSotos in our research.
You didn't tell me where the other one was.
Yeah, Brookville.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And I'm kind of on the path of another third one that I discovered yesterday.
Ooh.
The point being that DeSoto's name keeps popping up. And it's like, it's one of those things where we're being drawn to it, but I'm also seeing all these things failed that are named after DeSoto. Kind of like the name itself is like there's some kind of Native American curse because of the horrific treatment. And so I've been doing all this research on DeSoto, and by all this research I mean for like 10 minutes before we started. And what do I find is the name of the mission that he supposedly founded when he landed here in Marion County. That's connected to the
Marion County,
the Ocalawa River. That's the story from that we're talking about from the
That's from Silver Springs.
Silver Springs,
yeah.
Right? And what was the name of the mission that he founded, that he helped to found in Marion County when he got here?
I don't know what. What was it?
Read it. It's right there.
I can't read your writing. Santa Claus? What?
Santa Lucia.
Help me out.
We only spent an entire 2 episodes on Christmas talking about Santa Lucia and
all
that stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And our connection to stuff. And so that's kind of paranormal synchronicity we're talking about. Not only just the name game and things like that, but then like things starting to make sense. Like the idea, and also DeSoto, no one knows where he's buried.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no one knows where he's buried because
Wouldn't it be fun if he was in
he
Indian
highly
Springs?
encouraged. What?
So wouldn't it be fun if he was in Indian Springs?
Could be. He could be the one singing in Singing River. They think it's in the Mississippi River.
Oh, okay.
Because he highly encouraged people to think of him as a god. And so as they were conquering people, as they were like devastating these places, the natives thought he was a god. And he's the son of the sun is what they called him. And so when he died, they didn't want to tarnish his image of not be, and so they like weighed his body down and buried him like in secret, like maybe in the Mississippi River.
Wow.
Yes. But it's really interesting because when you watch his path, he literally like diseased everyone as he went. And so people started like fleeing from him as they saw like he was coming. They weren't even like, dude, you don't even need to conquer us. We're going to the mountains. We're going to the, yeah.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea he such a
either did I. And so I'm just doing into this, I'm just learning a little bit more. But those are the kind of connections we're talking about.
Well,
and are they right? And are they there? Are they things that really exist? Does the paranormal have the ability to point your head in the right direction? We did talk about this a little bit when we were talking about the I can't remember what the episode was, the ghostly message.
Yeah.
But this is more of, well, I guess it's connected in that, do we think that that synchronicity is from someplace, or that things are just connected? Things are paranormally connected. Right. And we find those threads. We find that little red string. We were even talking about getting something
7 degrees of separation where 6 degrees of separation where everything is interconnected if you look hard enough.
Well, that's people. Right?
Yeah, but all of the things that we're talking about are related to people.
But I'm not sure if 6 degrees of separation continues out to dead people.
Why not?
Like, are you connected like to Abraham Lincoln through 6 degrees of separation? Like maybe it does.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if anyone knows that the theory of 6 degrees of separation, if you know it extends to people who are dead. We'd love to hear.
That would, yeah.
If you or someone's good enough to have a split screen and like have us and then look it up. Or do
you think it's like your spirit guide pointing you in the right direction?
Well, and that's
the different legends and lore that you're experiencing.
So here's kind of where I lay with that, and this is why this is different than yes, and everything points. Kevin Bacon is definitely associated with Hernando de Soto. This is what's different from the ghostly message. I feel like the synchronicities are out there naturally. Like we talked about in the ghostly message episode.
They're just connected.
I just think, I do think that there is and I would love to get people's feedback on this. I do believe that there is a paranormal unified theory.
Okay.
Where things are connected, that there is some kind of, we put different religions, we put different belief systems in, but that doesn't mean the universe obeys that, True. And I'm not just being like, it doesn't matter which God you follow, just follow something. Like, I'm not saying that. I just honestly think that
if there is another level of existence, and that level of existence has to be kind of a blanket, right? And that blanket is just naturally connected, you know, and that those strings are just naturally there for us. We just don't see them until we start to look into them a little bit more, you know? And so I feel like maybe the bird incident is more towards the ghostly message. Like that was pulling us there, maybe.
I think it has to be. I think that's the occurrence of the things that we were, the events that were happening to us were just too coincidental to not be something paranormally guided.
Right.
Whereas, like, okay, St. Lucia or Santa Lucia, finding that within the research that you're doing just seems coincidental. It really does.
Okay. Except for the fact that...
Like, how does she fit into...
Except for the fact that when we were talking about Santa Lucia, we had probably the biggest synchronicity moment, because that was, for those of you guys who haven't watched the Christmas episode, that was when we had the whole tuna pasta incident.
Yes.
Where I was like,
true.
I'm going to ask Natalie, first thing of the year, like, what was the New Year's Eve traditions? And oh my God, I can't believe I used to have this tuna fish pasta that was so disgusting. We sit down and there's a recipe book. Literally, here's the computer. The recipe book is right here. Opened up to tuna pasta, which up until that point I thought was just something that a family friend had invented in a disgusting
and my
way.
daughter had wanted to make it that night.
Right, and that was the Santa Lucia episode. So
okay.
See, so do we make it that way? I guess.
Do we make it that way?
Do we make it that way? Do you think? I mean, obviously, so we're doing all this research in Punta Gorda. We're going to keep coming across the same names. Right? Like, it's not a coincidence that Dick Wyndham shows up in 3 different twists of who might be in Indian Springs.
Did I tell you?
He's buried at Indian Springs.
Did I tell you that Croom, did I tell you that part?
You did, but why don't you tell our audience?
That Croom, and I think there were 2 different, I think there were brothers.
Joe Croom and Jack Croom.
No, I don't remember their names. I have my research somewhere. I wasn't prepared to talk about it yet. There were 2 brothers, the Croom brothers, that were involved in the Everglades, not the restoration project, but the development of the Everglades, and utilizing all of that land for housing, for farming, things like that. They were on this board that, who was the governor? What was his name? The first one.
Gilbright? Oh, Jennings?
That Jennings headed up. And so it was all just kind of interconnected that way too. What are they saying?
Colleen, thank you, Colleen, always quick with us. An article in Quora says that 6 degrees of separation is the theory that any person on the planet can be connected to any other person on the planet through a chain of acquaintances that has no more than 5 intermediaries. Given that, I would include the dead, but that's just me.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you doing, Lorene? Love to see you.
Hi.
Call me. Miss you. All right.
So I just thought that was a pretty cool coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the Croom family happens to also be involved in the same players that are involved with our
right
adventure into.
And those brothers around the same time, like the early 1900s to.
Yeah,
those...
because Governor Jennings was leading that.
That's right. He was the first person.
Right,
sorry.
exactly. Yeah.
And so
it was all interconnected that way.
And so then I went in today and I went to the Railroad Museum.
Where?
In Punta Gorda.
In Punta Gorda, okay.
Because I was looking for information, and that guy was like, "Oh, I don't really know a lot of stuff." You know, he was actually from Massachusetts. I'm trying to think of like Framingham or something like that. Oh no, he's from Southie, who then moved to Framingham, and then and he was like, "But why don't you go?" He's like, "Those old fellas outside, like there's some old timers, they're always hanging out." And I was like, well, "What is that over there?" He's like, "I don't really know what they do over there, but those old timers hang out." And it's like, all right, you seen those comments?
I do.
All right,
Thank you.
Can I see those comments?
No.
Okay.
Keep going.
And so I went over there. And I'm like, how do I know when it's open? He's like, oh, they'll be hanging out outside. Those old timers. He just kept saying, those old timers outside. And so I went in there, and I ended up, the guy was looking at me like, oh, I don't really know much about the cases you're talking about. And I was like, okay. I'm like, press forward. And
within the next 10 minutes, he totally like, oh, I used to go to that haunted Arcadia theater. And I never said the word haunted. I never said the word ghost or anything like that.
You didn't?
No,
really? So you didn't,
not
at
that point. Not at that point.
Who you were?
But once again, he was talking about, where's that? DeSoto County. Where's like, he's talking all about this area. He mentioned the Crudes. He mentioned the Arcadia Theater. And I have just recently been talking with Natalie about, I think I texted it today. If not today, yesterday.
The RAF?
Yeah, the RAF, and how that base, which the names escape me now, Carlson Air Force Base had become a mental institution, insane asylum was what it was called, and then a juvenile detention facility. And I was like, I've heard that story before.
I don't remember reading that anywhere.
Neither did I. And he's like, oh yeah, my buddy, my buddy owns that property. Here, let me give you his number. And I was like, we were just talking about that yesterday. Like, this is crazy. I came in here looking for if you knew anything about a cop who got killed, and boom.
Right.
Like, it's something totally different.
That is awesome. So when things like that happen, it's like, okay, am I supposed to just keep going then on this path?
Right.
It's almost like, is this a sign that I'm getting from the spirit guide or paranormal or whoever that's kind of leading me, that's trying to push me to continue investigating, continue researching this?
Right.
Or should I
is there so I guess that's one of the things we could offer to the audience. Is there a unified theory of the paranormal? So when you start looking into one thing, you're going to start getting something else because you're opening yourself up to understand that unified theory.
Okay.
Or is it spirit guides that are pointing you in the right direction?
Right.
Helping you make those connections?
I think it has a lot to do on whatever your belief system is. Right?
Yeah. So Dave says, I found a family member on my mom's side, was a lawyer for one of the past owners of the Johnstones back in the 1800s. Does this count? Does it count as connection? I think so. Because although I think it's more towards Natalie's things of things pushing you forward, Dave has been doing a lot of work with the Johnstones. He has
I don't know what that is.
It's a haunted location in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And we've been pushing out Dave's event. He's got an event going on there.
Gotcha.
And then boom, he finds out that like he's actually connected to them.
Absolutely, that
like,
counts.
Over
and look,
hundreds
it's dead
of years
people,
of,
but yes, absolutely, it counts. See?
Well, right, and that's you're obsessed with the dead people aspect of this.
I'm obsessed with dead people.
I obsess over dead people. So I don't know. I think that it's every single time that we get into something, it seems that this happened. Now we are looking at a small sample size, right? Because we're looking at a limited area. We're looking at, I mean, we can say these words, but really, Bradenton's an hour away. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Arcadia is 45 minutes away. So yeah, all those people are going to like have touched each other's lives in some way. It's like the idea of, is it just a coincidence that Gilchrist is the first person on the murder site, and then he's the person who pardons the killer?
No, I think there's way more to the story. I was trying to work the whole angle of, was there money changing hands that shouldn't have been based upon that council to develop the Everglades?
Well, now these names are all crisscrossity, and it's actually even mentioned in the story. So I'm driving, and I went to where Bowman was killed today. So I'm on Taylor Street. So he lived on Taylor Street.
We're talking about the last episode that we did, right, for anybody that doesn't know.
And I'm on Taylor Street, and Taylor Street intersects with Cooper. And I'm like, that's very weird, because these names, because I was asking, the street names being named is fairly recent, like within the last 50 years.
Oh.
And I'm like, Cooper was the man who was convicted of killing him. So imagine living on the road that intersects where your killer was, like your killer's name.
But they were just recently renamed?
Right, because a lot of them are movie stars. So I'm like, maybe it's like the famous Western Cooper guy whose name I can't remember. Because there's an Elizabeth. There's Elizabeth that's named after Elizabeth Taylor. There's Grace, after the Grace Kelly. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So it was once again one of those weird little things of like, wait a minute.
Yeah, but I think
Cooper and.
So when is it a stretch? When is it a stretch to say, come on, that does not really.
Well, and that's what,
really
and Colleen says it, and I think that some people that are watching, like Hellier, are going to say, like, that's a little bit of a stretch.
Right.
So I think what you do is you take the rarity of the incident, right?
Yes, Gary Cooper.
So Gary, thank you. You take for example, the bird situation and Lorraine pops into the two. Yeah, you're all really smart when you have to think of like 12 different things at once
They
and be
Googled
live. All I kept thinking was, the man who shot people Liberty Valance, he shot people Liberty Valance.
Keep going.
Which I think is about Gary Cooper. Or he was in it. That bird thing is like preposterous.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so
ridiculous.
You can kind of be like the Santa Lucia thing here. Okay, that's a little bit of a stretch, right? And I think we tend to also make connections because we want things to be connected. We want things to think that that there are we're making sense of something. The best way for us to make sense of something is for it to be like, oh my word, because this, I can totally prove it.
Right. When you create familiarity between things, then you are like, yes, I have a deeper understanding of this. This is, it's better because of the connections that you were able to make.
And I think as researchers, you want to find that missing link.
Yeah.
And you want to be, in other words, there's no way, unless a ghost pops up out of the grave, walks over to us and he's like, how you doing, Mama Gra? Have you tried my, you're not going to shake my hand?
Oh, sure.
Have you tried my Bloody Bucket wine?
Do you think she would come shake your hand, or do you think she'd like one of those, hey there, slugger?
I think she would probably knock me over. I was reading something today about, there was a contest to guess her bra size, because I guess she was a large woman with large bosoms.
Nice.
So, reason 23 to go to Indian Springs Cemetery.
To see dead people? Oh, never mind.
Well, she shows up. But anyway, I mean, unless it's that, we're not going to know who is haunting that cemetery, right? We're not going to know who those spirits are.
Right, no.
And yet, leading into it, there's a part of us that thinks that if we just do enough research, we'll find that one little thing in an obscure book. And I went to 2 different historical societies today and was looking into things and looking in old pictures and thinking that, like, I can unlock this. I can unlock it. Like, 110 years later, I'm going to find out who killed Marshall Bone.
I have that same drive, though. I researched all weekend.
Right. And I think that
didn't leave.
So I guess the other part of that is the more that you research, the more you are lying to yourself about these synchronicities. Do they even exist? Or is it just because it's all part of the rabbit hole that you are currently in?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that goes back to when is enough too, because you just keep going. I think no matter what you do, you can't exhaust your research. You really can't. There's always going to be other connections that you're able to make, other avenues that you are going to want to look down.
Right. And I think part of it also is that there is a framing that's set by humans, right?
What do you mean?
So these stories are passed down. They're researched, passed down, experienced, told, whatever it is, by humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe those ideas that we all kind of have the same archetypes, we all kind of tell a story the same way, then when you're looking into something like, let's say, the Bridgewater Triangle, and all of a sudden now you're looking into potentially this cursed Ocala or the curse of DeSoto, because the research that you're in, because the rabbit hole was created by a human, and humans kind of naturally have the same narrative style, that it's going to seem like they're connected because
somebody's already laid the groundwork.
Because someone's already looked at it the way that you're looking at it.
I see.
Or someone's tried to promote it that way. If you were to read Dark Woods, you would think like, oh my God, this curse idea has been around for centuries, and maybe it has, but that was my angle into the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the next person's going to be like, ooh, cursed county here, cursed. Wait, we have these similar things. It's the same curse. It's the same curse. Oh my God, it's a curse. Are they the same curse? Are they the same? You're like, that kind of idea.
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
It's when the universe itself throws these things at you, like the bird, So
don't you think that's more event-driven than necessarily research-driven? So if something actually happens to you, as opposed to, I read this line, Santa Lucia, it must be connected.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think that's another level of it, is like that there is this kind of, if you're researching the same thing, you're gonna find these things that are the same, right? And if you are reading history books, or you, and it's also like you as someone living in 2019, whatever year we're in currently, 2019, you're going to look at
writing from 1887, and it's going to seem like it's connected because the people all write the same, which is different from you. Do you see what I'm saying there? Like, in other words, you're going to say, like,
yes,
they're going to use certain buzzwords, they're going to use idioms, they're going to use phrasing that's similar.
Yeah,
because
but
they might be writing at the same time. I think people do like that. Like,
really? Based on idioms or sayings?
Yes, because my students, every time now they see the word thou, they think it had to have been written by Shakespeare. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
okay,
so when you hear that kind of dialogue or that kind of dialect or something like that, it starts to make you think like, oh, these things, but they're really not. They just happen to be from the same time plane. So it's really down to those synchronistic moments that happen.
Okay, and do you think it's the universe or your paranormal best friend pushing you?
Who's my paranormal best friend?
I don't know.
I thought you were my paranormal best friend.
The person on the paranormal, on the spirit side.
On the other side?
On the other side.
Do I have that person in my life?
Everybody has that person in their life, I believe.
So based on what you're saying, that person threw a bird in front of a...
Yeah.
Really?
Or the vision of a bird. The bird wasn't there. The bird was gone. I hallucinated the bird.
Oh, so yours was a dead bird that was not a dead bird.
Right.
Oh.
Mine
I guess I would
exist.
say right. I guess the argument can be made that that was going to happen, and it would be more that you couldn't find your keys for 30 seconds, and therefore you were put in a position to witness that thing. Does that make sense? So that incident was going to happen. Your spirit guide just put you in a place where you would witness it.
But it didn't really happen.
It physically happened.
Were
you on drugs? Then it happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because there's no evidence of it afterwards doesn't mean that it can't. From Colleen, it's kind of like pareidolia. Our minds want so desperately to make connections, right? So that idea that you look into a picture and you naturally see a face. We have to get, I want to really get, what's her name? Clarissa Vasquez on the show for one of the episodes, an interview episode, because she just wrote a whole book that's pretty much like what we're talking about right now.
Oh, neat.
And then Dave says it's kind of like the law of attraction, which I also agree. Like,
explain that. What do you mean? Kind of like the law of attraction.
When you want things to happen and you put that wanting energy out, you attract the things that you want. So if we're talking like The Secret of like, I want to be a millionaire, so I'm going to put up pictures of money and focus on that and stuff like that. That's probably not the best example.
Okay, so
that's kind of how I see it.
When you were handed the $2 bill at the concession stand the day before going to the haunted train tracks.
That is synchronicity, right? That is, but did I think that my spirit guide put that $2 bill? Did
you think about, like, I really want a $2 bill before going there?
I thought I wanted a $2 hooker. No, I didn't think. That's an old phrase.
I know.
It hasn't been changed for inflation. But no, I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking like, oh, this isn't going to work.
Right. So
like,
yes, the law of attraction maybe in some respects, but I didn't want to see a bird. You didn't want to get a $2 bill, but I guess we were asking for signs subconsciously, maybe.
Right. So if you're asking for signs subconsciously, and then you get them.
Right.
But that would then involve, so a spirit guide found a $2 bill, snuck into a middle schooler's bedroom. Now it's getting creepy. Put the $2 bill into the kid's hand. Got that kid to have enough courage to go to the dance. He was socially awkward. To give me that money, like that doesn't seem to make sense to me. That's more of just like, I think like the universe is setting these things up. Because then the same thing happened to the person who I went out with, Erin, who I went out with to Venice this year, is that she got the $2 bill under weird circumstances, always kept it down, couldn't find it, found the $2 bill, and then like 5 minutes later I called her and said, hey, or texted her and said, hey, do you want to come on the legend trip with me this year?
That's really cool.
And so that $2 bill is really an interesting story in of itself. So,
yeah, it is. So it's just a grand design then that we're supposed to be doing these things, and the little signs that we get along the way kind of confirm that?
Partly.
Okay.
I think more of it's just.
But you don't believe in
I just think it's all connected. No, I just think it's all connected. You know what I'm saying? I think that if we could, which we can't, if we could, and we've talked about this for the idea of metaphysics, if we could rise above our own lives
right? So if we could rise above, like even like the history of us, not of us, but
collective
of us.
us. Got it.
Right. Then you would be able to see that all these things made sense and they were there all the time, you know? But if we could do it in our own lives, we could pop up and be like, oh, wow, like I really see that this influenced me and that this has been here the whole time, that I've always been drawn to people that have orange on, or, you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of my color and that connects to something else. And so I think that we don't have that kind of perspective, but
interesting,
because we're not here, because we're on ground level and we're looking at something straight on. And so when we get a little bit of glimpse behind the curtain of that, and I think that when we are submerged in the paranormal, that this kind of idea flows naturally in the paranormal, right? We force it, but it flows naturally. There's no time. There's no space. There's no, except for what you might be confined with.
Okay.
You know, like Ma's not saying like, whoop, 2019, like wasn't like this back in my, like, for her, time is existing in every moment.
So we think.
You said theory, so I'm offering theory. You don't have to then confirm that it's a theory.
Yes.
Right? So it's natural for the paranormal to exist like that and for those connections to be made. And it's not until we look into the paranormal that we touch that. Because we're in our linear cause and effect, things make sense kind of way. And then when we push back that curtain and we start looking into the paranormal, that free flow that happens of that energy or that those ideas, those signs, we see them. We kind of temporarily live a paranormal life.
So do you think because we are, and
I'm using the word paranormal, but I hope that people understand that I'm talking about, you know, more of like an esoteric kind of like, you know, not necessarily I'm saying ghosts, or it's just kind of like an energy filled world as opposed to our solid filled world and whoever that just was over there.
Oh, come on. Really?
A little bit.
Again?
Go ahead.
We have ghosts. My question to you is going to be, do you think that we get more signs, that we experience this more because we've taken so many steps towards?
Yeah.
Do you remember getting this many signs prior to your involvement in?
Well, so, you know, I no.
Okay.
I got no signs. Although every once in a while I'd get a sign to get back in to it. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, I think that is a really good example of what I was saying about the federal government and Heather Gately and all that stuff, because at that time, just coincidences were just a natural part of my life. And we were using the Ouija board so much, and I was just like, this is the kind of the founding moments of what will be Christopher Balzano and Massachusetts Paranormal Crossroads starting. And people always say, well, how did you get started on this stuff? And it's like, oh, well, I was in Charlesgate.
Yeah.
And I mean, it used to be freaky. Like my friends used to just be like, what? Wow. How? Going to a random place and see. I remember I was doing something and I was like, oh, we need to go this way for some reason. And then Judy appeared. Judy, whose mom made the tuna fish pasta. Dun, dun, dun.
Let the tuna fish pasta go. Let that go.
I would definitely let that go. But I mean, like, and that kind of stuff happened to me all the time. Like that Heather Gately stuff used to happen to me as just part of my everyday regular life. You know what I'm saying? Like these moments would just happen all the time. And I was in like what I consider the most haunted building in Boston, and was more importantly like harnessing that energy, like touching the paranormal that was there. I wasn't just living there, I was actively seeking it out.
Right. And so you think that I don't think that necessarily brought you more experiences, right? It just made you more aware of them, you think? No,
I think it brought me more experiences.
Okay, so you think the more that we are filled with the paranormal energy, we say paranormal, but you know, it's because of you're tapping into different energies, not just on our regular playing field here, that becomes a hotbed for activity of synchronicity.
Yeah, I think it does. And And I think like you were saying, and Colleen brought this up, and you've brought it up, it can be both. It can be your guardian angel maybe pointing you in certain directions. You notice certain things, signs are put in front of you.
Right.
Or, like in a positive final destination kind of way, a series of events happens that leads you to a place.
That leads you to it, yeah.
Just your head doesn't get chopped off, but like you learn something about yourself.
Horrible
instead.
movie.
It's kind of like if Final Destination was on Sesame Street.
What did Colleen say? I can't see.
Colleen said, I think paranormal investigators do get more signs by involving themselves so deeply. It's like putting up the radio antenna. Specifically, or the
that's a good analogy. I like that. Yeah.
Or the hello, we're open for business sign as well.
Right.
So people who want to make contact or ideas that want to make their way are like, there's a receptor.
Yeah.
But then I also think you become a receptor, that those things are just out there, and all of a sudden you become like a lint brush, and you just kind of pick up all this paranormal stuff because you've ripped off that light. I'm going to even stop with the analogy. Of
you got to just, but you get so much.
Hopefully you get what I'm saying. I had a lint brush incident this morning. I don't want to talk about it. But I'll tell you later. Do
I want to know?
Probably not. I will share with absolutely nobody later. But I definitely think that like you then become submerged in that, and then it affects you.
Yeah.
So we would love to know some of your. We're gonna end here because we're about at an hour, right?
Yeah.
We're at 55 minutes, 56, and we've really done a good job, especially on our live shows, of cutting it to an hour.
Yes.
So
maybe not so much on the actual podcast where
we only went late once. Okay. We only went late once, and it really was. We stopped at much like we're doing right now. We stopped at like 59 minutes, and then we continued on talking about things for like another 5 minutes. It took us like 27 minutes to get through. My name's Chris. Visit the website. Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what I want you guys to do. Everything sounds wrong when we say it. What I want you guys to do is, if you're watching the video, you can comment on this directly about this kind of synchronicity that you've experienced while you've.
Yeah, we'd love to get your stories.
We'd love to get
Tell
those
us
stories.
your connections.
We are doing the ghost trip or lesbian trip this weekend. We are going to be visiting.
I am very excited about this.
I'm going to push out some of the pictures and stuff tomorrow and maybe Friday during the day.
Okay.
Because I don't want to cross-pollinate.
I still wish I could find the underlying reason for the sheriff's death.
Right. We're not going to.
We might.
We
could.
But I did find where you're gonna drink. We're gonna tip a few back.
Yay!
I was right there.
Fantastic.
I was like, right there, bam. And so if you're gonna follow us this weekend is hashtag Indian Springs.
Okay.
So hashtag Indian Springs is gonna be our legend trip. Hashtag if you want to follow us on Instagram at Spooky Balzano. Spooky Tripping.
Sorry.
If you're following us on Instagram and want to follow us on the hashtag Spooky Tripping, it's
okay.
Why can we not have this edited? This weekend we'll be going on a legend trip. If you want to follow what we're doing and you are on Instagram, please follow the hashtag Indian Springs at Spooky Tripping.
Good job.
Spooky Tripping is also the email where you can email us your experiences, especially about the ghostly synchronicity. That's spookytripping@gmail.com.
Good job.
Please visit our primary website, trippingonlegends.wordpress.com. We're pushing out content daily, or at least we try to, and we will be doing a write-up in the next week or so on both Hog Island and the Singing River, which was mentioned in this episode.
If you'd like to find us on Twitter. Yeah, you're getting a lot of laughs for this one. Good job. If you'd like to find us on Twitter, I'm at Nene My Friend.
And I am at Spooky Balzano.
Yes, good job.
And of course, there's always Facebook, which seems to be our primary because we're getting older. Our primary
somebody the other day just told me,
things out.
Dude, only like 40s and 50-year-olds are on Facebook.
Right. So if you're 40 or 50 and want to follow us on Facebook, it's at facebook.com/trippingonlegends. I've had a lot of people contact me on my personal page because they're enjoying the content that we are putting out. You don't need to necessarily be my friend to experience the wonderful things that are Tripping on Legends. You can just go straight
to facebook.com/tripping on legends.
They love you.
And over the next couple of weeks, especially, that would be an interesting place to go because we'll be pushing out. I'm getting a lot of requests for interviews and things of the like. So that would be a good way to hear me and other people who have similar belief systems on other radio shows.
And with that said,
I'm Christopher Balzano.
I'm Natalie Crist.
And here's hoping that all of your synchronicities
are legendary.
Have a wonderful evening. I always wonder whether when you hit that button, whether it keeps going.
Yeah, I wonder.
And I never watch our own episodes all the way to the end.
No, me either.
We're kind of pathetic that way.
You should probably press end.
Press end now,
Yes.
but we don't know if it's actually ended yet or what.